selective acquisition where we were there to, what can we strip out?
Right.
No, we were there to build a great Canadian.
And build it together. Although it's interesting because in a lot of M&As, you sort of have two parties. In some cases, they're equals, and you combine them in sort of the 1 + 1 equals 3 type of scenario. In this case, they were much bigger than Indigo,
right?
And they became Indigo,
right?
So you had to sort of bring your culture and the way you did things into a much larger behemoth,
right?
Not just make them be okay with it, but actually force them to embrace it almost, or get them to embrace it. That's a really difficult way to do that.
And, I mean, you didn't convert all the chapters to Indigo. I mean, the chapters still exist today. So you then had to manage
two brands. Yeah, that was one of the most difficult things. It remains an issue. I was very struck by the people who went to chapters loved their chapters. The customers loved their chapter stores. And the people who went to Indigo loved their Indigo. And I was always struck by the Coke story. Remember, does anybody remember when Coke, they changed their formula?
The New Coke.
New Coke, and it was a disaster. That story was in my mind at that time. And I was afraid to put the Indigo brand on, and people would say, oh, it's just plastering it, and they're taking away our chapters. So I was very tentative. And to this day, there are still some chapters.
Because they are chapters, they're not Indigo.
Yeah, and they run from the inside like Indigo, and now we could change them, it would be okay, because there are other issues. But so there's some left, but the internal culture changed within 6 months. It was one culture. We were there for the right reasons,
and they saw that. I mean, they saw that you were successful. You talked about when you were a Paradigm Consulting, but even before so, this idea of transformation and bringing technology in and helping companies to sort of innovate. And I feel very proud to say that you and I have become friends the last few years. And frankly, my relationship with you is effectively us talking about technology and us talking about, sometimes you tell me something that I don't really want to hear, but I need to hear, and sometimes I tell you the same, and that's our wonderful dynamic. But you did something that is remarkable that most people in their business have heard of but don't know the story, which is in 2009, you decided to do something that no other book retail entrepreneur would ever do. You're the founder of a company that does e-readers, which is sort of like me starting to buy old school shopping malls. It doesn't really make that much sense. You sort of are disrupting yourself.
Be successful.
Maybe. My mom and dad are in the front row, so they definitely.
Where are they?
Yeah, they're mom and dad.
Oh, hi.
Yeah. Okay,
He's amazing. You're mom and dad.
My mother's actually one of the grandmother judges here at Stratupfest. It's her birthday. And it's her birthday, yeah. Happy birthday, Mom. You decide you now are running the largest book retailer in Canada, one of the biggest book retailers on the planet, and in 2009 you decide to launch an e-reader company called Kobo. You remember if you've heard Kobo? You still have it? Incredible company. Why in God's name would you do that, Heather?
Okay, well, two reasons. One, I was on the board of a company called J. Crew. Does anybody here know J. Crew?
We know Mickey Drexler.
Okay, know Mickey. He's here.
He's one of our next guests on Big Shot.
Okay, so I was on Mickey's board, and I go to a meeting one morning, and it was the hippest company at the time. Like, it was the super hippest company. And half the people are just waxing lyrical about their Kindle. I still don't like Kindle.
Yeah, it's okay.
And they're talking about it, and I'm thinking, like, what the heck? And anyway, I started to learn like e-readers and what Amazon was doing with e-readers, and they were so into it, and I could see that the technology was going to upend, just like what had happened with MP3 had upended music stores. Right?
And was it the fact that you could store multiple books, or was the e-ink? What was it that you found?
I personally didn't even like them.
You did like them.
But I could see that there were people who were attracted to this technology and that it had upended the music business. At that time, I was in an unbelievably lucky position. My chief technologist at the time, who, man, I miss him to this day, Marley. My chief technologist was a rocket scientist who had come back.
Actually, rocket scientist.
Yeah, Mike Sabinis. You know Mike, right?
Yeah.
Mike, okay. Mike had come back to Canada from Silicon Valley, and he had joined Indigo because he also loved books. And he knew he wasn't going to be at Indigo forever, but we just had this great connection, and I wanted to do things technologically. And so we decided, okay, we could go up against Amazon in this technology, because it's just, in the end, you know, it's just, you need the technologist. And then my husband owned a company that made hardware. There's a lot of luck in my story. I think you're getting a lot of luck. And I think that's true. You need the hard work, you need the courage. But I am convinced, and I've been around a long time, that there is good fortune. You have to give credit to where good fortune. So I had a software technologist, and my husband owned a company that did hardware, and I had a great friend who was the #2 at a company called IDEO. Do you know IDEO?
Yep.
Their design, like one of the greatest in the world.
Yep.
Right. So suddenly I could put this team together. I didn't know any of it, but I knew the customer. I always know the customer. So we did, and within 9 months we had Rev 1.
Wow.
And Rev 1 was not bad. Rev 2, Fast Company did a blind, like not blind, but they had people test Kobo, Kindle, and Nook, and we won.
Wow. Nook was Barnes & Noble's.
Nook was
right?
Barnes & Noble.
Yeah.
And we had a rocket ship. So at that time, Indigo was doing great. We had a rocket ship with Kobo. But I could see after like 0 to 200 million in 2.5 years was a rocket ship. But I could also see Apple was getting in, Amazon was revving up. There was no way that long term, we're not a technology company.
Yeah.
We're really
and they're
not
capitalized to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars.
Like unbelievable. Only Shopify could go up against them.
Yeah,
How did you, well done.
Going back to the checklist, I mean, where you know you're the #1 customer, right? You're the chief book lover, and you're not a customer of this. This is not.
I was not a customer of Kindle, but my customers were customers of Kindle.
And that was obvious.
And I was early into MP3 digital downloading. Like I respected that digitizing content was a real thing. But me personally, no. I love audio. Interestingly, I've become an audio fan and physical. So I read one, I listen to one. But anyway, so that was a rocket ship, but I was worried.
Yeah.
I was worried. I knew.
Yeah.
And there was that Rakuten, that company in Japan, had tried to buy Nook, and they ran into a disconcerting relationship with the owners, and they knocked on our door. And I mean...
That was it. So I mean, let me set the stage for the audience for a second. So companies get started in 2009, Kobo. In 2011, Rakuten comes and buys a company for over $300 million. That's her side project. That's Humvee.
Yeah, that's right. That's the cliff note, the footnote, right? But Heather, when I met you, it was in the late 2000s, and Amazon had really ramped up.
Right.
Books as a category went from a major category to a much smaller category, and you were faced yet again with this huge transformation of the business. You had to it had to be books adjacent. Talk to us a little bit. I mean, first you had to deal with e-readers, which you capitalized on, as Harvey says, incredibly well. But after that was done and you were celebrating this acquisition, you now have this issue where you have a really big bookstore and the book category is shrinking.
So first of all, the book category wasn't shrinking. And when we sold Kobo, we did a 10-year deal that had us getting 50% of all ebook sales. Like we sold it. We actually sold it for $400 million.
Excuse me, sorry.
No, wait,
ran it by $100 million.
No, you were right. We sold it for $400 US, but it included distribution in Borders in the US.
Oh, wow.
Borders went bankrupt between the time they made their offer and the close.
Wow.
And it shaved $70 million US off the price.
That's rough.
So, you know, like things happen.
That's a reverse luck thing.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
No, but so we had a long-term deal, both to sell the devices and to make money on it. But you're right that I knew 20% of books were being read digitally at the time. I was worried, what if it's 50%? Wasn't Amazon. Until just post-COVID, we held our own 50-50 digital with Amazon. The biggest mistake I ever made was being out of the way when Harley called and said, partner with me. And I had stepped back from the business, didn't want to crossover. But if we have time to talk about mistakes, believe me, I've made a big one. The biggest.
Should have listened to me.
Okay, I should have.
I do want to talk about...
So we did start to introduce book lover related things. It had to be a story with the books. And that's how the business continued to thrive until COVID.
Right.
Then we came out of COVID with our strongest customer affection. Then for 2 years, I gave the business over to someone else. And don't blame him, I made the wrong decision.
But she's back, baby. She's back. She is. So today we're going to talk about, David and I are, as you know, students of business. We're obsessed with business. One thing that most people know but don't really understand is a very simple marketing concept called Heather's Picks. Now, Heather's Picks, you all see it. It's in the window. You can read about it. It's Heather's books that she'd recommend. What I don't think most people understand is the efficacy of it. And you can say, well, I want you to talk about, why has Heather's Picks been so effective in your view?
Well, also, where did it come from?
How'd that come up?
I've been picking books and recommending them since I was 11. So these are just books I read that I love like crazy. They come with a money-back guarantee. We don't get many back, but they come with a money-back guarantee.
It's like your money-back guarantee.
How many people in this audience are francophone, read French first? Okay, we were just here today talking about doing Les livres en français, Heather's Picks en français. We were just here talking about it. I'm going back to reading in French a bit as a brain training, so we're going to have those.
This is your first set of customers. You're ready to customers.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you going to code again also?
But
You coding again also?
I should, but I'm way rusty. I tell you.
But it's been so effective that I think most people don't realize how important and impactful it is. I'm fascinated by this thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's very nice of you to say.
Did you have it on day one in Burlington?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. My first pick was a book called The Secrets of Grazie dei Rossi. We opened with it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, listen, it's if you do anything in life with authenticity, right? So these are books I read and I love, and when I read a book I love, I die to tell people about it. So that's all I do. I just tell people about it.
I want to be respectful of time. We don't have too much time left, but a couple things I want to cover. First is, you've now all heard the Indigo story. It's this incredible, iconic story, not just for Canada, but in the world, with an iconic leader. You're back now, as I said. You're taking the company private.
I did.
You took the company private, privatization, no longer publicly traded. We're also neighbors in Toronto. We're in the same building, which I feel very proud of. What's the plan?
So, talk about a tough 4 years. COVID cost Indigo about 160 million in cash.
Wow.
Yeah, about 160 million.
In burn.
In burn.
Yeah.
Yeah. My 2-year misstep cost about another 120 million.
Okay.
So that's a lot of money for any retail company. And it basically cleaned the cash off my balance sheet. And we are dealing with all of the increasing demands on people's time, right? So the plan is to not just, first of all, I had to bring the company back to who we were. We got a little bit lost for 2 years and bring it back. And it's having a huge impact. I'm really happy about that. But I'm interested in where we go now as a company that is about reading and ideas in a world where attention spans have declined. How many people in this room have children? How many people are concerned about the amount of time your kids spend with their phones? Right.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, how many people here, I'm just curious, how many people here feel you, and be honest, you wish you scrolled less and read more? Right. That's what I'm interested in.
Wow.
I'm interested in the connection. There is a giant neurological connection. I wish your wife was out here, right in the audience. Between long-form reading and brain development. And reading real books and your ability to sleep in good quality sleep, right? There's a huge connection. And I am deeply interested in the connecting people to what they really want to read and what they really want to do, and enhance. On the kids business, our goal is to have Canadian children the most literate in the world, both the ones we serve and the ones we do through our foundation.
How do you do that?
You have to bring me back. Increasing, like our mission is to inspire reading and enrich the lives of our book lover customers. And there's a lot I want to do in that.
But wait,
so that's I need your.
Maybe it's a full plan on how you get kids reading more, but how do you take something so powerful like the scrolling effect?
Right.
It's addictive, we all know that.
It is addictive.
Right, so conceptually, just from 1,000 feet, how do you go about, because you're right, we all want to sit there and read a book. We romanticize it, and yet we don't do it. Yet we stay on our phones and we scroll.
It's a lot. If you actually can hook into something you feel like reading and you get into it in the first 4 pages, it's unbelievable what happens. You've got to give yourself that chance. Right? So what we found is heavy readers still exist. Everyone thinks book buying has gone away. It hasn't. It's declined almost not at all. It's format mix. By the way, e-readers have gone way down. Audio has its place because people can listen to story while they're doing things. So we're going to do audio for sure. But there's a lot of ways. If I put the right book in your hands, man,
It's curation.
It's curation, and it's the application of AI to curation, which I'm really interested in. I'm really interested in. I'm really interested in.
I think you're interested.
So there's a lot that I think there is to excavate on this subject, and I'm.
Cool. I mean, frankly, for David and I, there's no better run company than founder-led companies.
Yeah.
We think founder-led, I know there's a lot of, show of hands, how many of you are founders in the room? Yeah, I mean, founder-led companies, there's nothing like it. There's no one's going to care more, work harder, be more focused, be more ambitious than founders. To bring a founder back into the helm like you, I'm so.
And then when you transfer, what I just took for granted were the values and soul of the place.
Yeah.
And I just assumed it was so central, like breathing.
Right.
And I think this is true even when entrepreneurs are building organizations, and I bet you both have views on this. Values alignment is number one. The minute I came back, first of all, 2 people who quit came back that I adore.
Yeah.
And
there's a magnetism to it, right? Yeah.
It is all about those core values and making those core values happen.
We have to go, but before I do, there is something. I mean, I have my mother and my wife sitting in the audience. I also have 2 daughters. And so one thing that I've always been inspired by you since the day you and I met in Muskoka many years ago was the way that you have been, you said earlier that the thing you wanted even before being an entrepreneur was to be a mom, to have kids.
Yes.
You seem to have this incredible way to, I don't want to call it balance because it's more like it's harmony, this work-life harmony. With you have 11 grandchildren, I believe, right? You're a titan of industry.
Go for it.
We don't even have time, but we're not going for any more kids. Actually, this is where I want to tell you all. But you're a titan of industry, not just in Canada, around the world, but you're an incredible grandmother, leader. We haven't even had a chance to talk about your philanthropy. Well, we got to get that. You could give $100 million to make sure that we have more AI technology innovated.
And you built the emergency ring at Sinai Hospital.
I mean, you've done these
the relationship between technology and humanity, but anyway.
But how do you do it all? How does this all work out? What do I tell my daughters to be more like you? And what do we all tell everyone?
This is going to sound like the least feminist answer, and I am a proud feminist. I married well, and I was born well. That is, my parents gave me good values. 3 things. My parents gave me good values. I'm blessed with good health, so I hope that's right. And they gave me that, and I have the most incredible husband. I think, I tell him all the time, like 80% of what I've succeeded at, I put at his feet, support-wise, the balance, the way, like, I can't even express my gratitude for him and the way in which that has enabled me to follow my passions. Like, I'm just a curious person.
Heather Harley loves to say we stand on the shoulders of giants, and I think that goes without saying that you are clearly one of those giants. We're both tremendously inspired by you, and I know everyone in this audience has gotten a lot out of this talk, so thanks.
I want to make sure I don't leave with one thing. The number of mistakes I've made is a legend and could fill a book. I don't want to leave, I never like to leave these discussions with someone thinking it was just all these big wins. It's 1,000 little mistakes and a few big ones. We just keep at it.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
We build big shops.